Don't know me, I'm Barry Cranford. I'm the founder of the LJC and I run RecWorks. Anyone has any other questions about me or my work or anything like that, then feel free to ask. But other than that, I'm going to get out of the way and hand over to Peter Hicks on applying 10 rules for radicals. Peter.
Thank you. And let's do the technical bit. Can everyone see my screen? Cool. If there's a black line that appears on the screen in a moment, that's one of my cats who has decided that she is going to interrupt my presentation. So apologies, but they're cats, so we have to love them. So hi, I'm Peter Hicks. I'm the director of a small company called Open Train Times Limited. I've worked in the rail industry for about 8 or 9 years now, and I've worked in the IT industry for, I think it's about 25 years this year. So I've seen quite a lot of stuff happening. I'm going to give a short presentation on something called 10 Rules for Radicals, which was a presentation that a chap in America called Carl Malamud did a number of years ago. I'm a fairly cynical person, or I was a fairly cynical person when it came to getting change done. But this presentation that Carl did, I saw and thought, wow, that's really simple. There are 10 rules. I'm only going to pull out 4 of them. And the first one is call everything experiment. So back when I was starting Open Train Times, it was before open data was really a thing in the rail industry. And it was hard to get access to data I needed to get access to do stuff with timetables. So I decided the best thing to do in this situation is call it an experiment. Say to the rail industry, hey, can I have your timetable data? I want to do a project with it. And it's important calling it an experiment because it implies that, you know, I'm trying it out. I'm not a serious challenger. Nobody needs to worry. They just need to give me the data and I start doing something with it. It's also a very small step to getting closer to the target state you want, which in my case was getting the rail industry to open up their data a bit more. And in fact, I once I got timetable data, I ended up asking for access to Network Rail's real-time data feeds, and again, called that an experiment. And they said yes. So if you need to make change happen and you're not sure whether people are going to be up for it, call it an experiment. People will then probably say, yeah, okay, doesn't work in all cases, but give it a try. The second probably pertinent point on my side is eyeballs rule. So it's fine trying something else, trying something out yourself, but if you've got lots of people using it or looking at it or aware of it, it's a kind of bit of publicity, people can do your work for you. So when I was working in Open Train Times on the early days, I was very open about what I was doing, worked with a number of people, got in front of an audience at City Hall with one of the mayor's representatives to present what I'd done. Everyone liked it. It's really important if you've got a good idea to get other people looking at it. Don't try to make something perfect straight away. Get people using it, create what's called a minimum viable product for people who are familiar with agile and product development, and get people using it, get a critical mass behind you. 20 people using something you developed is a lot easier to, sorry, excuse me, there's a cat on the keyboard. 20 people using what you developed is a lot more powerful than one person using it. Because 20 people can then tell another 10 people, can tell another 10 people, and growth is far more than exponential. The next really important one, and this was a big challenge for me, is having skin in the game. It's really important when you've got an idea and you want to go forward and take it to the next level to actually commit something of you to it. Now, I did this financially. I paid some money for fairly expensive IBM software licenses, basically to say, well, look, I think my experiments worked, rail industry. I don't want you to take away this data that you've given me because I've paid quite a bit of money for licenses. Also doing things like eating your own dog food, using my own website for getting around the Rail network, allows me to talk about how accurate the data is, where it falls down, what the problems might be, and it makes everything more real if you're actually using what you've developed. The final one, and probably the most important one, and this took me a number of years to actually learn how to do, don't be afraid to fail. Failure isn't a bad thing. Failure teaches us what works and what doesn't work, and failure isn't always down to you. A fairly recent example I had, I was writing some software, wasn't sure whether something would quite work out. It worked out perfectly, but then we had nobody come to us with data that we could use with the product. So it failed, but hey, you know, I've got a great story about I worked with these people on real-time train loading and the project didn't work because of this. It's not a downside, it's an upside. You've got the experience of, I have done this and it didn't work for these reasons. So 10 Rules for Radicals, hopefully I've piqued your interest a little bit. It's a free PDF available on public.resource.org. I've put the link there, but if you search for Carl Malamud, 10 Rules for Radicals, you'll find a link to his video. I thoroughly recommend, sorry, cat attacking me. Thoroughly recommend you read it, think about it, think about where you can apply it. And I will say, honestly, over the last 9 or 10 years, it's helped me in my work and personal development, no end. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Peter. Appreciate that. I think I love that, especially that first one about experimentation. What was the rule? What was the first rule that you?
Call everything an experiment.
That's it. Call everything an experiment. So it's something that literally we have said that at RecWorks. Like literally the whole company is just an experiment, and the bits that work we keep doing. Like this was an experiment. We tried it, and now, Dom, how many through are we? 16, 17?
19, I think this is.
19, and that's it. Everything is just an experiment that is currently working. So I love that. Any questions at all for Peter on any of that presentation?
Yeah, I just say, just to compliment, I liked this one, especially as you, because it's the same for me now. For a while, since a while ago in my company, every time I want to try something new, I call it, and I'm already doing it, I call it an experiment. And I think that it's good because kind of remove the weight. You know that it's not, of course, that you are going to do the best you can for it to work, but then people know that it's something that you are trying, you are learning. So I loved it, this one as well.
Thank you. We'll probably, when you read the rest of them, that they'll resonate with you as well. They resonated very strongly with me. And I thought, hey, why did I only discover this back in 2010? Why didn't I discover it a number of years earlier?
So true. Brilliant. All right, thank you very much, Peter. I will just say something about feedback. Whilst everyone here is not necessarily a first-time speaker, the whole point of the Lightning Talks events are to give a platform for speakers to test things, to get started maybe, or test new ideas, or all that kind of thing. So feedback is crucial. So if anyone's happy to share some feedback, Dom has kindly just posted a link there on the chat. So as long as everyone can see that, please feel free to log on, even if it's just a few of the multi-choice words. Then it's really, really useful to speakers to get an idea. It's like throwing things over a fence sometimes, speaking, and you never really know what it's like, you know, for the people on the other end. So it really does help give that layer of comfort to know, you know, was that good? You know, which bits did you take out of that? And that kind of thing could be really, really useful. So if you're happy to give feedback, please do. Okay, Andrea, are you ready? Are you all good? Oh, in fact, one thing before I introduce Andrea, is anybody, if there is anyone on the call, we've only got 4 today and we've got room for 5. So if anybody on the call listening has a lightning talk they would like to give, in fact, Peter's talk was one that I think we almost got as an impromptu talk before. So if anyone's got one there that they would like to give at the end of the final talk, then hit me up on directly on the messaging chat app on here, and yeah, we can get you booked in for the 5th one. So yeah, Andrea, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, okay, I am. So yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Andrea Mussap, and today I'm going to be talking about the speed of our speaking. So let me share my screen. Just a second, please. There we go. Okay, can you guys see my browser? Okay, thank you. So let me just start presenting. Okay, cool. I hope you are seeing my presentation now. Can I ask you, is my Zoom in front of my presentation? Oh no, you see just my presentation.
We've just got your presentation at the moment. I think
Oh,
we've just
great.
got, yeah.
Okay, now it's because my view is different. Okay, so without further ado, I decided to bring this subject for our discussion because I've seen both experienced and beginner speakers speaking too fast in their presentation. And some people think that if you speak too fast in a presentation, this is going to make you feel and sound more energetic. But it's not always like this. In fact, we have to think about our audience. Most likely, the people that are watching your presentation, probably not all of them are going to be English native speakers. So if you speak too fast, there is a chance that you might get your audience confused. And if they can't understand you, they might lose interest on what you're saying. And another reason why we should think about the speed of our speaking is because we want to look confident when we are talking, and speaking too fast might make you sound like you are nervous, and we don't want that. Another good reason to pay attention to the speed of your speaking is subtitles. If there is a chance that your talk to be transcribed or translated, which is a very good thing for inclusion for people who who are deaf or hard of hearing, it's very important to have subtitles. So if you speak too fast, your subtitles won't fit in the time that it's a very good time for people to read. However, it's good that in some key points of your presentation, you might speed up a little bit, because these, in fact, can make your presentation looks more energetic. It can draw your audience attention to a point that you want to highlight. So it's a question of, it's a balance that you have to find. Now, how do we know if you are speaking too fast or too slow in our presentations? I would use TED Talks as a good comparison. On average, TED Talks, the speakers in TED Talks, they talk 160, between 160 and 170 words per minute. So I believe that this might be a good rate for us to speak in our presentation. There is this website there where you can find how to calculate this rate. There is an application that they suggest. I didn't use it. I prefer to do it manually, of course, if it's just for a small test. The way you find your rate is you get, for example, 1 minute, you transcribe 1 minute of you speaking, and you count the words, and you divide this for 1 minute, or how many minutes you want to test. And then you see your rate, your words per minute. Now, just for fun, I calculated mine and Barry for a comparison, and I was impressed at how slow I was in my last presentation. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I bore people with my presentation? But I think I did it because I received very good feedbacks. But to me, what this shows is that I have some room to speed up a little, which is very good for me. So that's what I did. This sample is not representative because I just calculated one very random minute. So maybe if I check any other time in my presentation, I will see that I was speaking faster, and Barry as well. Maybe he slowed down in another minute, but I found it kind of fun to do that. And to close up, as Barry just said, this space here, especially in these lightning talks, many people here are first-time speakers. So I wanted to bring this, it's a question that I think each one of us could ask themselves, could assess. We can watch our presentation later and calculate, see how we are doing. Because if we are taking our time to come here or anywhere to give a presentation, it's because we think that we know something that's worth sharing. And we want to send this message. We want to share this with someone. But if our audience can't understand us because we are speaking too fast, we will not achieve our goal. So there is another reference there with techniques. If you find that you speak too fast and you want to slow down a bit, there are some techniques. It's not difficult. It's more, I think, a question of practice, and you can find more information there. And that's all from me today. So I think that's the message that I wanted to bring today for each one of us, to think about the reach, the speech that we are speaking, and we can improve it from there. That's
Brilliant.
all for me today. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you. And that picture of me was, yeah.
Did you like it?
No, but I don't know if you ever do when you see it. But no, it was good. 190. That doesn't surprise me as well. Now I'm thinking about how fast I'm speaking. I'm going to have to slow everything down. But I do. I can't help it. I kind of feel like whenever I speak or present or do anything here, I'm like the dog that's pulling on the lead. And if I have to try and speak slowly, then I just feel it's so difficult. I think it's something that takes a long time, doesn't it, to really be able to slow yourself down. Hey,
yeah,
Sam.
I know. Sorry, guys. I know that some people it's not about the presentation. Some people just speak fast. It's the way they do, and then you can say, "Oh, but that's how I do." So I'm going to present like this. But as I said, I myself, I want, when I give a presentation, I want to be understood. I want that people understand what I'm saying. So I decided to put an effort and try to speak in a speed that, especially, people from any part of the world can understand me. So I think that is for every person to decide what they want from their presentation.
For sure. No, it's interesting to hear. Sam, are you still doing your daily speaking every day?
I am, yes. So actually, it's interesting actually. When you're speaking,
have you noticed that? Have you noticed any change in speaking speed since you've been recording yourself speaking?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I kind of sort of can see myself speaking less quickly and sort of slowing down a bit. But I think for me it's more accepting in terms of, I suppose, the way I present myself. So yeah, it's interesting to sort of see that presentation in terms of speed, because I still speak fast, but I know I need to reduce it down. But watching myself helps doing that.
Interesting. Okay, cool. All right, Andrea, thank you. Did anyone else have any questions, by the way, for Andrea before we hand over on speaking speed?
I have a question for Andrea. Which speed you are using when you watch YouTube videos?
Sorry, say again. I didn't watch.
Which speed you are using when you're watching YouTube?
Which speak?
Speed.
I use the normal, the full one. I think it's 1x. When I watch things on YouTube, I use the default one.
Okay, it was tricky because I always using something more than one. And I think it depends on audition, because, for example, for students, you need to bring faster speech, because when it's students, they need to consume a lot of information, a lot, and they really care about speed. It's a really concrete environment that they're living in. And that's why for them it will be more critical to have presentations with fast fit. I think maybe some other target audition will prefer more faster speakers, and some auditions they prefer slower speakers. I think it should depend on the target.
It was interesting that you asked that, because I'm just taking a virtual course on Udemy, and there are, I think, 4 instructors in the course, and depending on the instructor, then I change the speed. Some of them I accelerate because it's too slow for me, but some of them, no, I use the full one because otherwise I can follow.
Yeah.
So maybe it depends on the person, the level of the English that this person knows, of course, because, you know, if you're not fluent, maybe it's more difficult to you. So it's not a rule. That's why I say it's a question that I think each person has to ask to themselves and see what they prefer to do about that.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Brilliant, thanks both. And Dom, we've got the link, haven't we, in the chat? So if anybody's got any feedback that they want to add there, please do use it. And then transferring them from Andrea to Irina.
Let me share this one. Is everybody can see my slides now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I will try to speak fast because the term is really huge, and this presentation is experiment for this talk because I know here is more Java community, and I'm working with both languages, Scala and Java, and Scala have a lot of syntax sugar that you really miss when you coding with Java. So I wanted to put here more features, but I understand that I will not be able to get in 10 minutes. And I'm not sure that it will be interesting for full presentation for 1 hour to speak what Scala languages has. But if it's so, I would like to receive it as a feedback. So let me start. I will cover several terms here. So this will be about case classes, objects, control matching, layout with options and string interpolation. So let's start. First of all, when you want to create an entity or table, for example, you should define a simple module, plain simple objects in Java. So you have a lot of things that you need to provide, like constructor, getters, also override equals and hashcode and toString methods. And what has Scala here? It's have case classes that let you to define everything that I provided on the previous slide in just one line, case class. So you really have everything here. You have a constructor, you have getters, you have equals, hashcode, and toString as well. Everything in just one line here. And it will be immutable, simple object. And if you see here, you can say, this is how you can define it. And it's really beautiful, I think. Instead of get, you just say, I want to get name, and you can access to it. If you see here the result, so name is Peter, agent 5, and let's check if it's equal, if we create 2 different objects. And yes, and also you don't have to say equals, you just can say by these 2 symbols that they are equal. You should check it. And in the first case, Peter and Dominic, they are not equal, it's false. And in the second, it's true. So you see that equals also overriding for you just in this one line. Then here we have a really interesting concept of objects. This is basically a static variable or static methods or something else. And suppose that we want to do some checks before we want to create an object. We want to check that age is inside 0 and 200 will be positive. And instead of general construction, we want to get instance of method, and it will be static. And here we can check boundaries for age, right? And if it's not correct, we can say which exception we want to throw, and we need to, of course, define it. Well, in Scala, you can create an object for your case class, and you can say, again, variables that will store static values. And here you can define the method apply. It's called apply, and when you will create a new object, it will understand that it should go to this apply method instead of general constructor. And here you will get the exceptions, and you don't need even to define these exceptions here. You just can tell that it's throw, and who working with Java, they know that it's annoying that you need to handle every exception, or you need to define all exceptions that methods provides. Next thing, traits. It's the concept of traits is really similar to interfaces in Java, and the thing that you can define some method here. I created traits that should be familiar for everybody because it's repository. And here you can say which methods you should implement. And this method, find by name, it's like default method, but you don't need to say default as you can do with Java 8. You need to just say what method you want to implement. And for this example of how you will override this, you just say that you implement this trait, really similar as Java interfaces. And now you can see that you don't need to say what you will do in find by name method. It's already implemented here, and I like it. It helps you to save some time. And also here you should explicitly say that you override interfaces. It's the next thing, I really like it. It's pattern matching. And I know that from Java 12, they bring it finally here, but it doesn't exist in the Llama version. In Java 11, it doesn't exist, but it exists in Scala. So basically in Java, you need to do something like switch case if you want to escape a lot of if-else conditions, but it doesn't work with string, for example. It doesn't work with every object. And in Scala, you have the same concept that work with every object. It's pattern matching. You can say what operation should match, and you can say what do. And you don't need breaks here because breaks is an error-prone approach. I saw a lot of examples when people just forget to provide a break. And here you don't need it. You just define everything that you want to do in this case, and then you go to the next case. It's really beautiful, and you don't need to create something like this. You just say, okay, case operation add or insert or update. In this case, I'm doing this operation. For option, it's more complex, but I also miss it because you have optional object and you want to do something if you have both objects is defined, or 3 objects is defined, or several objects. And here in Scala, you can say, okay, I have optional 1 and optional 2, And only if they both exist presented, then I bring you new object from these options. And in Java, you need to do really more than you want to check everything. In Scala, it's really easy and beautiful. And the last is simple, but I also like it. I also missed it. It's string interpolation. So if you want to add something in your string, you can do it. You can just say which variable you want to get without any string format or something else, and it's more readable when you work in these strings. And it's all for today. I will be glad if you have some questions, if you understand at least something from this quick review, and if you want to go deeply in this theme, I also will be glad. Please feel free to contact me, and thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Irina. I have to say, I don't understand that as a recruiter, and I can't even write hello world in any language, so I'm probably not the best person to ask questions on it. But does anyone out there have any questions at all for Irina? If you do, just unmute and ask away.
Hi, Irina. I do. You talked about Scala code, so can you mix Scala and Java code? So you could, write one class in Scala or a couple of classes in Scala and just leave the rest in Java. Is that possible?
It's possible to have both code in one project. To design your code, you need to separate it to different directories, at least. But yes, you can. Even in one package, you can define several classes that will be written in Java and several classes that will be written in Scala. So yes, it's possible. As Scala goes to JavaM and compiled to Java code, you can feel free. Yeah?
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Carsten. Thanks, Irina. Again, please do be liberal with your feedback. I haven't had any offers for a lightning talk, so I'm just asking again. Last time we did this, we had 4 people come forward. So is there anyone out there that's got a talk that they want to give in about 8 or 9 minutes? Please do let me know. And we will line you up. But yes, also please do add some feedback for that talk, and especially if you'd like to see Irina's longer version of that, then let us know and we can ask nicely. Okay, so we have our final talk of the day, providing no one comes forward. Kabir, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'll just share my screen.
Or Irina, I think you may need to. There you go. Yeah.
Cool. Right, so I think you can see it. I just need to move this Zoom stuff out of the way. Right. Present, that's the one. Okay, very good. Okay, right, so my name is Kabir and I work for Red Hat, and I'm really excited to be here today. So this feels a bit cheesy, what I just said, but there's a good reason which we'll dig into. So essentially, from the experienced speakers at these events, I've kind of learned that even if you are inexperienced speakers, the nerves never really go away. And we've had these kind of tips that you should reframe your nerves as excitement. So I stumbled upon this book called Psyched Up before Christmas. It was recommended to me by a colleague. And it goes into some details in the science behind this reframing nerves as excitement. So I thought it might be interesting to share with you guys. So typically when preparing for a presentation, at least for me, in some cases, you write your talk, you practice, you feel quite good about it. Then on the day, you kind of end up feeling a bit like this. And you kind of tell yourself to calm down, relax, blah, blah, and it doesn't really help, and it's super annoying. So This is essentially your adrenaline kicking in, and this, as we all know, triggers your fight or flight response, which manifests itself in these physical sensations that we associate with feeling nervous, for example, dry mouth, shaking, etc. So actually trying to tell yourself to calm down is totally the wrong way to go about it, and it does more harm than good. So if you look on this scale here, then calm and anxious are kind of totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And to begin with, you don't really want to be at either end of the spectrum. Your talk will probably be quite boring if you're totally calm. If you're really anxious, well, you can imagine. So if you are excited, then you probably inject some life into your presentation. And also, since this is kind of closer to being anxious, it's more achievable than trying to aim for total calmness. So they did some research with a big group of people singing some kind of karaoke game that gives you a score, something like Sing Stop, but it was on Nintendo and I can't remember the name. But essentially they split them into 3 groups. So the first group who took part were the control group. They didn't do anything special. They just went and sang in this game. And on average, they scored 70%, rounded off, yeah, across the group. Then they had another group who, before singing, read out the statement, "I feel nervous," and they scored a lot less, 50%. And the final group, they had read out the statement, basically, "I feel excited," and they had a measurably higher impact, or yeah, higher score. And I presume that they didn't really feel, on average, they sort of felt the same way about seeing this. So just the mere act of reading out the sentence had a big impact on their mood and their subsequent performance. Then finally, to kind of help come down a bit from the anxious state towards the excited state, there's a technique called centering. And this is kind of like a meditation where you can use kind of calm yourself down. They teach this to like classical music students, I believe. And if you practice centering like on a regular basis, I haven't actually done this myself, but if you practice this on a regular basis, then you can be in a really stressful situation and use this and calm yourself down in a few seconds. And now this might sound like a bit contradictory from what I said earlier on, that you shouldn't tell yourself to calm down. But the difference is that centering is a structured approach. You're just kind of following some steps in your mind. You're not really thinking about how anxious or anxious you are or how calm you want to be, but you're just kind of following these rehearsed steps, which takes your mind off the stressful situation. And this is kind of different from telling yourself, "Oh my God, I'm so stressed, I need to calm down," and do this all blindly, which kind of probably just winds you up more. So to recap, the book is called Psyched Up by Daniel McGinn. It has some nuggets, but it also has a load of waffles. So I don't think I'd recommend you to buy it, but if you can borrow a copy or something, then it's definitely worth reading through. Telling yourself to calm down doesn't do any good. And instead you should try to tell yourself that you feel really excited. And this technique of centering can help you distract yourself from worrying and calm down somewhat, and can be a useful tool. So that's all. Thanks.
Kabir, thank you very much.